Hello, everyone. It's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and this is Talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Crazy 8's episode 65. What's in the box?
What's in the box?
I've got to double check because there's a chance we've already named the Duty Nishaw episode this. Yeah. So this is either What's in the Box or What's in the Box Part 2. But anyway, we are here in a very weird circumstance. For those of you that are familiar with the Talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast, this is always a live stream podcast. And my favorite part about this podcast is being able to interact with all of you lovely people, seeing the super chat, seeing the chat, seeing the donations. You guys are incredible. Unfortunately, schedules were insanely busy this week. We literally were only able to fit like a 30-minute time block, which is obviously not long enough for a podcast that usually takes about 90 minutes. And I didn't want to like jip anyone off or say, oh, we can't read donations. That's not fair to you guys. So we are live, but not live. We are going to be premiering this probably 8 p.m. on Thursday night. We're recording it right now. It's like 10:30 Wednesday. It's going to be a quick one, and we're going to quickly give our thoughts on episode 65. Huge thank you to Cal and Pete for staying up, doing this with me. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good.
I've had a night. I am ready for my bed.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'll tell you this. We saw Nick T play live tonight. He had a local show, which was a lot of fun. That's why he's not here. After the show, I said, hey, let's get ice cream before we head back. Dredger said either we're getting ice cream or we're going straight back to your house, and I'm going to be on the podcast with you. I can't do both. And I thought long and hard, and as you can see, Dredger is not here. So,
got ice cream.
so I want to, give a shout out to those two as well. But here we are, episode 65 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. It was an interesting one. It's an arc setupper, which is what these, episodes usually are to start off the arcs. Some have been good. Some have been weird. This was definitely somewhere, I think, in the middle of good and weird. We finally get the Tiger variant. I have said for many months now, Tiger was the most important character in Sevens that we never got a variant for. True. We get her variant in this episode in the form of Epoch. I believe it's Epoch. So we'll get Poo. We'll get more into that. The Ryugu brothers completely, totally forgiven.
We're definitely going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I guess generally we're entering the 6th arc, potentially the 3rd to last arc of this show. Arc 5 had a very turbulent ending. I don't think many of us here on the team were big fans of how Arc 5 ended. The 5th arc of Go Rush.
I knew he was going to do it.
I got to clarify saying that out loud. So, Pete, I'll start with you.
Right.
Where are you thinking? How are you feeling here with Arc 6? Luke coming back, tournament on the horizon, Tiger variants here. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I don't invest too much in the opening episode of arcs. I mean, they're usually transitional periods, typically comedy style based, I would say. I think we did get a little bit more of where we're going here in this arc compared to normal ones. The whole Luke thing at the end was, I'm sure we'll dive into so much of that, but that to me is so intriguing because such a pivotal, important character in Sevens was Luke. His variant, huge obviously for an entire arc. He's kind of been MIA for the most part, and I've been saying that for a number of weeks on this podcast of what has happened to him, the provenance, now in whatever form we're getting him here. I'm interested to see where that goes, how he got there, who packaged him, what's his relationship going to be to this Tiger variant, how is he going to be, interact and reintroduced to the rest of our characters? Does this signify Yugioh coming back?
Right.
Who, kind of did his boss, walk off, which was hilarious last episode. I think that brings him in somewhere down the line. And hey, I mean, I think that kind of signals that he's going to probably compete in this tournament, which is the number one thing that we're excited for here, right? Yeah. This is the Galaxy Cup.
Yeah.
We started it. I love tournament arcs. I think we all love tournament arcs.
Absolutely.
The great part about it, as you always say, is you can get matchups you would never possibly see before. Antagonists, heroes, best friend characters, siblings, maybe rivals going again, all that stuff. And we're getting that as we'll go later in the next episode. But yeah, it was an okay episode. I definitely will say I was wrong on the part that for the most part, I really thought the Tiger variant was, at this point in the show, was not going to show up. And I thought she was kind of just thrown and molded into the Asaka variant.
Yep.
Asana variant of Asaka. And I'm wrong on that. And you have steadfast still on that of saying, like, it's weird that such a major character who we actually ended up seeing a new scene from in this show, when we went to the Sevens world, why has this character not shown up? It's pretty much the only major character out of the entire ensemble from Sevens that doesn't have a variant. Well, now we've answered that question, and we got that. To begin, was not the biggest fan of the way they took that character. I'll just be I'll be honest. I think there is what I will say is, I think there is great steps there, possibly, of her being a student to Yugioh to kind of break her out of that shell.
Yeah,
but for the moment, pretty annoying character at the moment. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, and this is one of those podcasts where I would have loved to do live because I would have loved to see how chat was feeling about her because similarities to Tiger for sure in the sense of being a little bit rude, a little bit brash, a little bit aggressive, I would say. Definitely similar there, but polar opposite. She is a complete shut-in. She's boxed in. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was kind of the weird joke that Alfred the Butler also on the nose. That's very on the nose. Usually they're very close to these references. That's probably the most on the nose reference that we've seen so far in Go Rush. So similar to Tiger in some ways, very, very different in the other ways, just being completely shy and a shut-in and not wanting to rush duel. But before we get into her a little bit, Cal, generally speaking, are you kind of in agreement here with Pete on 65, or did you like it? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but I think both of you said, when it's the first episode of the arc, your expectations aren't high. It's more of, okay, there's going to be a comedic part to it. You'll probably get a sprinkle of a new story piece that's going to unfold. And obviously for this arc, we have the tournament arc. So that was the big main focus, kind of setting everybody up for it and then kind of bringing the players in, kind of saying there's going to be aliens in it because this is for humans and aliens to do things together. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, they drop Luke in a box, literally. And you're like, okay, so now we got the what's his actual name?
Lug.
The Lug.
I
keep thinking Luke now because we went back to
Sevens. I know,
Sevens.
it's pretty close.
But now you have the Lug in there. Maybe this Tiger variant ends up joining the tournament and is now, maybe watches Yugioh duel and is like, wow, this is great. And then she tries to rush duel and that's what gets her out of her box or something like that. But outside of that episode as a whole, the only intriguing thought that occurred to me when watching is okay, so Luke is definitely an alien in Sevens because that's why the Watch reacts to their family.
He's got to be part.
Well, he's got alien blood.
Alien blood. That's
for sure.
That's what to me that was the implication of dropping him at their house like that.
That was surprising. That was very unexpected. I did not expect that. And I also love the reverse here, right? In Sevens, how many times was Luke shown to be absolutely petrified of his sister?
I mean, rightfully
and
so.
In this show, his variant scares the living daylights out of Tiger's variant, that blood-curdling scream in the middle of the night. So that was kind of a little bit of payback from Luke. I'm sure Luke, down the line in Sevens is probably smiling, and he's not sure why. Well, that's why. So I'm sure that probably was done intentionally there. But yeah, I also to stay on the topic of Epoch, and then we'll move on to the Relic and the Ryugu brothers as well, because the Relic was kind of discussed, I thought, in a very interesting way this episode. Yeah. Do any of you guys get swirly vibes from Epoch? That was the first thing that I thought of, a character who seems to be in a suit or in something that's blocking them off from the real world. Now, of course, Swirly had the dark secret of being Gohayuga sealed away. I don't think that's going to be the case here with Epoch. There could be something that's a little deeper at play here, and it's why she's maybe a very important character. But the way that Swirly looked up to Luke, the way that Luke took Swirly under his wings, reminds me a lot of the relationship we might see between Yugioh and Epoch. I know Epoch is kind of, hesitant and doesn't want to do that, but we see in the preview of 66, you can already kind of tell that Epoch is starting to, I think, look up to Yugioh a little bit. So Definite, and that was, of course, at the beginning of the 5th arc in 7's. This is the beginning of the 6th arc in Go Rush. Like, I feel like there's similarities there. I don't know if either of you guys got those vibes.
Yeah, I can definitely see it.
Okay.
It definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think she'll have any evil entity inside of her.
No, me neither.
No, I don't think so.
But I definitely think it's a little bit of a callback, and her story is going to be more about getting her out of that box and out into the world and kind of taking somewhat of a leadership present role to be the heir of the Yugioh company, which I think will echo down the line the tiger that we meet, that part.
Yeah. Other thing I want to just touch really quick with the Yugiohs, when we learned she was the 5th heir of the family, I can say with certainty we did not get a number of what Luke was in 7, so that would have been good because it would have actually given us years.
That's why they didn't.
That's why they didn't. Absolutely agree with that. We see the picture before Epoch, and it looks very, I'll show it on screen, it looks very similar to the great-grandfather that was in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's. Now, if that is the great-grandfather, that means Epoch would be like the grandmother, and then, like, you know, we might have a closer tie-in, or it could just be a reference, and because we don't see the picture of him super clearly, it might just be deceiving our eyes, and it might not actually be him. But, I mean, what do you, Easter egg, or are you saying it's the great-grandfather, Epoch is like the grandma line? And, I mean, how do you feel about it?
You want to go?
Yeah, I don't think there's really a right answer here, but I was more under the impression of kind of like an Easter egg in the terms of like, he just looks exactly like him because it's family.
Yeah, I agree.
So that they could throw that in there, and people like you who notice that are like, oh my God, is that the same guy? Like, if that's the same guy, we have a timeline here.
Yeah.
You know, we have the years by, and I think that's a way you can look at it. To me, I think it's just more of just to clearly throw in your face that this is the family. We're going to put a picture like that.
It would, if you believe that's the same character, it would imply you would have to feel that Luke and Tiger, or Luke at least, is the 7th in line. And now all of a sudden, but that would mean that Go Rush and 7's are like 60, 70 years maybe. That seems too short for me. I've always felt 150-ish, 200 years. So that's why I have a problem just saying, like, you know, making the snap call, like, yeah, you know, that's confirmation. But I don't know. It's tough because it does look very similar to him. It does.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that. I mean, one, obviously, it's purposely obscured because that's a classic thing in anime and Yugioh, right? You pan over to a picture of a parent or a grandparent, and you can't clearly see what they look like, right? It either means they're dead or they're going to come into play somewhere down the line. I don't believe this man. You were joking in the live stream. I don't think this man's a vampire, right? Like, I don't think it's the same exact person,
right?
But relatives can look similar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's why you're so close genetically and everything else. It could very well be someone like that. We don't get a clear photo because this guy looks kind of as old as the great-grandfather that we saw. So I feel like there's no way it's the same person, coupled with Yugioh when they went to 7 saying, like, yeah, this is the distant future. Like, they made an emphasis on how far it was.
That's a great point. That's why you can't, and you make a great point there. You can't really believe, because there's no way that he's that old in Go Rush, and he's also that old in 7. That's the big. And I actually forgot about that when I was thinking about it just now. But so I'm happy you brought it up. That's the big flaw in believing that. Oh, this means that Luke is the 7th
easily said
heir to the throne, but there's no way.
Yeah, they could have easily said something of just like, hey, you know, this is a little bit in the future or something like that. And you're like, all right, it might be like 50 years or something like that. To make the point that they did is like, hey, in my mind, this is at least 200 years.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the jump that we're making. And I just think it could be someone like, you know, they work for the company. They probably wear similar outfits, you know, and have similar designs. It may a lot of, you know, especially with men, I feel a lot of men in the family age and look the same way at some point, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
When you pass that like 50, 55 range, it's just what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a little fun Easter egg too, because I think most people are not necessarily their eye is drawn to it in that moment. We just happen to catch it because we analyze everything.
Yeah, 100%. Ryugu brothers, we'll touch on them real quick. Goha Yuna, Asaka were annoyed at them. Yuumu even seemed a little like, I get it, but like for the sake of peace, let's just kind of move on.
Yeah.
But everybody else, Manya, London, Kawhi Tell, Chupataro, I mean, aliens, people that have been living under the iron fist of the Ryugu brothers for 2 years underground, lost their homes. Some people lost probably family and lives if they're aliens. 2 whole years. I mean, we talked about it a lot at the end of 64, so I don't want to dwell on it, but that was something that I was I was happy that at least like Goha Yuna and Asaka were a little annoyed by it, and they kind of were like, hey, what are we doing here? But very quick redemption.
And I feel like Goha Yuna and Asaka were more worried about the naming rights to the tournament than they actually were
you could make that
about
case.
him being like, just
Forgiven.
being forgiven and great now all of a sudden.
You could make that
because
case.
literally it's like they were like, a little upset, and then he names the tournament. And she's like, "Why isn't it Matsuba Machinery Tournament?" And like both of them are like, "After my company." It's like they seemed more annoyed with that than obviously for probably comedic purposes, but more annoyed with that than him just just standing up there like he has control of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure for this point, there'll be a lot of naysayers in the comments for things I say. But, one thing that I see often in the live chat, right, is like, this is Yugioh. This is, it's made for kids, especially in Rush, right? Like, Pete, you can't expect it to be so serious and things like that. I'm like, okay, totally understand you. But when you set in the same show parameters and you build these characters up and you say that we lived basically in a dictatorship for over 2 years. For essentially most of those people, I know they come back as they're carded because it's Yugioh, but they were dead, right? Like people probably lost homes, businesses, were driven underground. There was a rebel group. They were hunted, right? Like they were shooting rockets of aliens off the planet. Who knows what happened even in the time before we see it, because we're basically the eyes of Yugioh.
Yes.
Yeah. When he comes back, we're getting caught up like he is. That's basically, he's a plot device in that way. When you set those parameters for your show, it's very hard for me, and maybe it's just a personal thing, and I'm sure people will disagree, but it's very hard for me to just go, it's just a kid's show, it doesn't matter. You set those parameters. Yep. So you can't then look at me and go, I'll be like Manu and these people, they're forgiven. They did horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And their redemption, as we talked about, which we won't dwell on, was not good at all. And it continues here. And like even in that moment where it's like, all right, Goha Yuna and Asaka, there's a little bit there, and then they're more worried about the name instead. Yep. And it's like, that's not what I wanted. Like, can at least the two of them have somewhat of a grudge for this arc and like kind of be the voice of reason, even if no one's listening to them. At least be like us. To be like, what are we doing here? And that I'm glad that we're over the hump of it now, because we're probably not going to deal with it anymore, because I just think that is a very flat landing for me. I just don't think it works. There's been so many redemptions that have been done so much better. Even when characters have not been great to our protagonists, this was probably the poorest I could think of in the Rush era so far.
Well, you keep it within the show. How about Yugioh? I thought Yugioh has been
he did some horrible
best,
things.
and I think he's been the best written villainous character Studio Bridge has done so far.
Yep.
So, I think it's a combination of things. How quickly it happened, how nobody's really questioning it, and how horrible they were to everyone in. And, like, it wasn't even a case necessarily of being controlled or manipulated by a higher power. Like if they threw it all in the creator or another character that was maybe brainwashing, like the brothers,
but it wasn't.
Yeah, like that would be like a little annoying. We've seen it; it's a trope,
right?
But like, they're redemption, and I hate to say that it like hurts them as characters, but in my eyes, it does a little bit.
It definitely does.
It does.
And I love those characters, and it just sucks that this is, they're going to be side characters most likely for the rest of the show. And it just sucks that this is where we left them when we had such a promising arc. And I'll just continue not to like that, and it continues here of like they shouldn't be running anything, any tournament, anything, even if it's for synergy of aliens and humans or everything else. They should not be at the front of it.
I agree.
They were discriminatory.
No, I agree.
Like they should not be at the front of it. So
and if there is, and if they are, there should be more protests than we've seen. Yeah. And then like you look at within that last arc how Manabu was treated by them, and like that. And I'll because that's a very hot button issue. I'll continue to say I think the way that they treated Manabu was very understandable. But, like, you can't show that and then show this with the Ryugu brothers, and, like, it doesn't make sense. No, that's the issue.
It's like, yes, did he benefit off of things? Absolutely, right? I understand that he was doing a job, but he also was kind of benefiting and enjoying it. But that's like, they're the dictator, and you're more mad at the assistant, the secretary of the dictator, than the actual dictator themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Yeah.
And I respect everybody's opinions and people that are going to comment, but like to me, it is not an accurate, or it's kind of lazy just to be like, it's a kid show. That's ridiculous. Like you set the parameters, you need to hold somewhat to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
this just wasn't done.
And within Go Rush itself, I mean, they've tackled, I think, heavier topics than Sevens has tackled. Right? They've tackled war. An endless war. Genocide. They've tackled whether a living creature is a human being or not. And they've tackled the main protagonist, Yugioh, being implied dead when he became a shirt.
Yeah.
So they've touched on some really heavy stuff.
Exactly.
So yeah, the whole it's a kid show. I don't know. I think the team,
the taking over the universe,
right? The team and I think it's an insult to the team as well, because I think the team has proven that it's more than just that. And they are capable of doing better. So, and listen, I love a lot of
perfect. It happens.
No, and I love a lot of the stuff that they've done. I've really enjoyed Go Rush, and I cannot wait to see where Go Rush goes from here. But this is one that I think they missed the mark on a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to watch more. It's
of
not,
course.
but
absolutely.
That's still my opinion on it.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Do you have anything else to say on that? Anything different, or no? You kind of agree or disagree? I mean,
no, I think I agree mostly. I think that there was so much intrigue and build up for them when they were introduced, right?
Yeah.
And you have even the scene early on where we get introduced to Tremolo for the first time, and he's trying to hunt down Yumu, and he's literally like, I need to get her.
Right.
Like, that's who I need. There was no real like big rivalry between them, or the hunt, or like even like just having some sort of, any sort of scene where it was like life or death right in front of your face, where you have to make this decision, and like he goes in going after Yumu instead of maybe doing something for his brother or whatever it would be, because I feel like that could have been a really cool dynamic of him trying to do this for his brother, but also disobeying his brother by going this far, something along 100%. Those lines. And I think it would build up both of their characters. Like when he did put Tremolo in jail, right? We were like, he has to do it. He has to show his power and what he has like above everybody else, show that he's in control. But he was never in control to begin with. You'll later find out. Like it's just, he didn't even realize that he was an alien.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And then when Tremolo actually did duel one of our characters in UDS, he was holding back. Remember, he's like, I can't let myself get carried away. Okay, but we never see that payoff. We never see him let himself get carried away in a maniacal way, because he ends up losing the duel, and then the next time we see him, he's out of jail, everyone's redeemed.
Gets out, and
so
there
were a lot of things, right? That the payoff of that duel, Tremolo Yumu, never saw. The payoff of Tremolo actually going all out in a duel, at least according to himself and his dialogue, never saw. Mm-hmm. So, that is a little disappointing.
There's definitely, this could have been 2 arcs.
It
really could have been.
I agree.
And there was better ways to do this.
Yeah. Relic, I want to touch on before we go to the 66 summary, and we'll make our picks real quick. It'll be unofficial because I'm not going to text Dredger or Nick T this late. Yumu and Udius, that'll be tricky.
That'll be something.
The Relic.
The Relic. They're studying the Relic. You got the experts looking at the Relic.
Some experts.
The experts, yeah.
The rock guy.
Yumu makes a great point, and she confirms what we've all suspected but didn't know, because it was always like, maybe Yugioh did tell someone, right? Maybe he did tell someone. Yugioh did not tell a soul about Maximums. I imagine that was said to Yumu by Yugioh himself. Mm-hmm. So how the hell were Maximums turned online?
Is the question.
it's got to be Otis, right? It
or
has
the
to be.
creator, or whatever.
Or the creator, yeah.
No.
But what did you guys make of the relic stuff? What do you guys think is going to come out of that?
I think the relic stuff is, I mean, obviously it's interesting, and right now it doesn't look like they have an incredible amount on it, but they were starting to get hints because Dinois, I think that's how Dylan pronounces it.
Dinova.
She does say Dinois.
She mentions that it has like the same energy as a similar relic near Velgear, which is the one that Yugioh and Yugioh had
started
been
the
to.
kind of whole prophecy thing
the whole
of
process
Rush and all that stuff.
And that's like kind of their first hint, and I think this could potentially lead us back to Velgear into a situation where we're going to run into maybe someone, maybe not the creator, but someone associated with the creator that kind of has this knowledge of the relic and what it does and who controls it and how it's controlled and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's kind of maybe not something that's not going to just like hit right away. Obviously, we're jumping into a tournament anyway, but I feel like this is how we're going to kind of end the tournament arc, like the actual arc itself, with more information on the relic. Like, we need to go to X and go find, like, figure more out about this.
So someone like Sirocco.
Sure.
Or
Otis. Sure.
the girl we saw.
We're not gonna
the
do
girl
this
with the
late.
cat.
We're not doing
Sure.
this. We're not doing this.
She was in the episode.
She was in the episode.
Okay.
yes,
But
with the cat.
That's all we need to touch on right now.
Regardless of the hypothetical theories, that is going to be the focus, I think, of the next arc, and they're throwing it in now to get it in our heads.
I think Epoch, whatever the Epoch, whatever the stuff is with her, the Lug, the tournament, that's focus here in arc 6.
Yep.
And then I think 7 and 8 is going to be creator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a small deal
But
that
remember-
the Lug is back.
But there's also
and he's a chair.
You know what this episode made me completely forget about? How episode 64 ended. With that weird like Earth Damar substance
kinda
in
seems
the
like it's
relic.
alive.
In the relic.
So that could be maybe a
Well,
villain
when she
here.
references the energy within the relic, I think
Right.
it could be that same energy that powers this is
Yeah.
either A, the same relic, or B, there's multiple because maybe it was split into multiple different entryways and whatnot.
I'm shocked that they're able to get this close to it.
And
to
the relic's
study it.
not like leaving. Yeah.
That part I think is fascinating. I think that kind of feels like a trap.
It's like a dormant.
And I want to see where that goes. I mean, it's good sign that we're getting this right in the beginning episode of the arc, because now I feel like this is not going to be just a tournament. It's a tournament overlaid to really where we're building up for what we assume is probably 2 final arcs after this. And that's what I'm intrigued with. The Sirocco thing is so fascinating.
Yeah,
because,
incredibly.
That character seems like they time traveled or something. That seemed like direct surveillance they were doing when we were in the Sevens world. They were the only character that was blacked out, like all the way in episode 20 or whatever it was.
Yeah, 20.
With Go Hyuna. There's big things to come with that character. And to me, I don't know if the creator is Otis, right? But if you wanted to create the Otis variant, right, have some similarities, well, those aliens worked for him.
Yeah.
And so it would make sense that if we built up, she's been gathering all that information all this time to lead us to the creator.
Well, and also remember, those aliens were the Co-Girls, and who is a character that really went unresolved and undefeated in the last arc that was a villain.
Which is what I said,
Energy Kopiko.
Just left that there.
So
Yeah.
that character's still out there, a threat potentially. So, the Co-Girls and the creator, much like the Co-Girls and how Otis worked out together, definitely going to be interesting there. Remember, Otis and creator do have the same voice actor as well. So
They do.
Very
I
true.
mean, I could just see it being a variant.
I could too.
Not being
100%.
the same exact thing, but just that's this show's not of here's your Otis character.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, guys, we're going to get into the summaries for 66. That's all we have. Nope, that's not the right one. Cal, do you want to read that, my man? Episode 66, the Galaxy Cup begins. The Galaxy Cup, a Rush Duel tournament for both Earthlings and aliens, has finally begun. Yugioh is now the dual tutor for the head of the Yugioh Gear Company, Epoch. In order to allow Epoch to experience what a duel is like, Yugioh challenges Yuumu to a duel. And it seems like the entire field of like Matsuba Town is becoming a dueling battlefield. I think that was said in the preview. So that's fascinating. There's your summary, guys. We have our Yugioh Yuumu duel, the only of the main trio that have not matched up yet. Some thoughts here.
It's a weird. I feel like it's a weird time. Like, I don't really understand the tournament aspect if he's just going and challenging
Can't be single
her.
elimination. That's my thought on it.
So it's some like round robin tournament type
like
thing?
in sevens, you have to rack up points or something like that. It cannot be single elimination because if they're going to eliminate one of their two big powerhouse characters here at the start of this tournament, I'd be shocked.
That's kind of why I was a little like, why would you have this right now?
Yeah.
You could have Yugioh face off against anyone and roll through them to show, like, for the tutoring aspect. So it does make it a little more interesting, but like you said, if it's not like any single elimination or anything, it's just points, then this duel is basically 50-50. So.
Well, Pete, do you have anything to say, or do you want to make our picks?
No, we can make picks.
Okay.
Let's go picks.
Okay.
That's a tough one, I think.
All right. Ready? 3.
Do we have a group chat for that?
I put it in NFTs and nuts.
Oh, I didn't even get the message.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay.
He deleted our chat, bro.
All right. Well, that's.
Oh, there it is. Got it.
All right. 3, 2, 1, send. Okay.
The director actually answered too.
Yeah. Okay. So Nick T did not answer. We have 3 picks that are the same and one that is different. Do you guys want to start?
Well, you start.
Nick T just picked. He picked with me.
Okay. So I'll just say it. I'm the only one that picked Yuumu here to win. Here's my thoughts on it. I think Yugioh is the favorite to win the tournament. I just don't believe this is going to be a single elimination. Mm-hmm. So I think this will be kind of classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Give your protagonist a surprising loss at the beginning, and then maybe you have these two rematch at the end in the finale or something like that. Furthermore, it gives me vibes of Roman versus Yuga, where Roman pulled off that surprising win against our protagonist.
Okay.
And I just think that, I don't know, I just have a feeling that Yuumu is going to win this, because I think that one of the big fears of Epoch, and I could be totally wrong on this, is maybe being afraid of losing, is being afraid of like failing the Kamijo Gear Company, you know, that burden of failure. And I think if she enjoys a rush duel and sees her tutor lose, I think that could go a long way in saying, but even whether, you know, in defeat, you still have like a great time, and that's what makes rush dueling so special. And so I could see that being a really powerful lesson for her early on, where she's able to get over that fear of defeat by seeing Yugioh, by seeing her tutor lose in this duel. And I just think this is so early in the arc that we could have a really surprise result, and I think we are. I just this feels like such a high stakes, not high stakes, but high naming matchup to have so early in the arc.
Yeah. And
protagonists in Yu-Gi-Oh! Become more invincible the further along they go. Yugioh hasn't lost yet this season. I think this is going to be a surprising Yuumu win here early on in the arc. Okay. But I don't feel very confident on it. It's a tough one to pick.
So I picked Yugioh, and it was, I mean, partially for the reasons that you explained in terms of she's not, like, you want her to have fun watching her first rush duel, right? So I would think victory would play more into feeding that. This is really fun, whatever, and make Epoch more enticed to at least try rush dueling.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things for me. But again, I feel like just you speaking about the Roman Yuga duel, it's like that could easily be the case. Like I definitely don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this duel, I was like, oh, Yugioh, and then I thought more about it, and it got to this day where we had to make our picks, and it just nudged me where I just had a weird feeling. I had a weird feeling in that duel because it was so early on in the arc. I have a weird feeling here, man. I think Yuumu is going to win.
You either perfectly thought everything out or majorly overthought about it.
Which I've done. Which I've done. We've all done it.
Oh,
we've all had our silly picks. Either way, though, I think either way you pick, it's not a bad pick.
No.
This is one where, honestly, I think if you get it wrong, you know, it is what it is. I think it's two really good duelists going at it here.
100%.
I mean, Yumu put up last time we saw her, she put up a good fight against Phaser.
Yeah.
I mean, she put up a good
very
fight.
true.
So UDS, you imagine, won't have his maximums, or maybe he has one of Yuga's maximums left. That's still ambiguous. He could have a maximum left, but we don't know, right?
I think he had Yuga's.
He probably still has Yuga's because I doubt Yuga took it back, but that Odo maximum isn't there anymore. So I don't know. Listen, it's going to be it has the potential to be a really good duel here. I think it's a really fascinating duel to kick off this arc as well. Pete, you're also going to go with Udius here. What are your thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit tricky. I mean, that summary, hearing it for the first time, it's like, I agree with you. It's hard for me to believe that this is single elimination. I mean, that'd be crazy if that was the case and you're kicking it off with this. But I agree with Cal in the sense that I feel, and I get your point still, and they're warranted. But I feel like the best way to teach her is by showing, hey, here's the fun and here's a victory. And I don't think there's going to be, because it's probably not going to be single elimination, there's not going to be too crazy of stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think at this point, Udius is the better duelist, and
Agree with that.
I see him picking up just a win here because he's tutoring. I just don't think it's a great sign for him if the first time he's tutoring her, he literally loses.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I feel like there's an opportunity, if this is not single elimination, for him to maybe lose down the line, or who knows? I mean, he might just go on an invincible move here and that's it. Because Yugioh is just very hard for me to predict dark horses. I mean, they typically go the protagonist's way.
Usually.
That's just how it goes. I'm interested if they shake it up a bit, but for right now, he's got to be the overwhelming favorite.
He's the overwhelming favorite. That's my other thought on it, because if he doesn't lose here, I think he just runs through everyone.
Probably does.
So that's why What?
So we've seen that.
No, we have seen
characters
it.
just roll the table.
No, we have.
He can make it close. He has one life point, but he survives, and then
pulls a lightning.
Creates a life point.
I mean, it's going to be a fascinating duel. This is another one where I think chat would probably favor UDS, but I think it would probably be like 70-30, I think.
I don't think it would be that much. I think it would be like 50 to like 40 to
I think
10.
it's a tricky one. I don't think it's that close.
No, I agree. I definitely
think it's
agree.
pretty tricky.
I definitely agree with that.
Remember chat? It feels like a lifetime ago we talked to them.
I remember chat. Yeah,
remember
well, the
that
funny
chat.
thing is we'll be live premiering this, so I should be in the video while we're in the chat. So hopefully I'll be able to talk to you guys. But,
and if you have any bad opinions that the chat's disagreeing with, you could just change it by writing it in the chat.
Yeah, or I could just mute people.
True.
Or block people.
Whoa.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm kidding.
Listen,
okay,
Ryugu brother.
Let me tell you something. This was a lot of fun, but it feels weird chat not being here.
It does.
It's like us recording the old summary video.
Yeah, which is always good.
With less structure, because we used to have sheets, remember?
That's
when we
right.
did the videos?
That's back when you cared.
I would print out the summaries for everyone,
I remember we had all the pictures of the characters, so we could point to them and know whose name was
that was
who.
your first Yu-Gi-Oh.
Back in the day.
Back in the early Brains days. But guys, that's going to wrap up a weird, I think we did this for one of the 7's episodes.
I think we did, yeah.
So this should be the only episode for Go Rush we do this for.
Yeah.
We're back to our normal Wednesday night stream times again. Nick T just had a concert. I felt it was important for all of us to go support him.
Oh, for sure.
And then tomorrow night and Tuesday night, we were just all, including myself, busy, and I'm going on a vacation, so just the timing just did not work up to do a makeup stream, because I would have even done one Friday night, but I'm literally on vacation from Friday to Tuesday. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much. Leave all of your thoughts on episode 65 of Go Rush down below. This has been Talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Crazy 8's, episode 65, What's in the Box? Potentially part 2.
We'll see.
Cal, Pete, thank you guys so much.
Of course.
Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
night.